If you've ever stepped inside an ancient farmhouse, a monastery, or a timber hall that has stood through Viking raids, Black Plague winters, revolutions, and the rise and fall of kingdoms, something always catches your eye. Not the stone walls or the ironwork, but the wood. Massive beams, darkened by centuries, yet still strong, still carrying weight, still performing the job they were carved for hundreds of years ago. And whenever you see it, you can't help but ask a question modern builders rarely think about: why did their wood survive? While our pressure-treated, chemically protected, factory-dried lumber often fails in just a few decades. Walk through a 1,000-year-old church in Norway. Run your hand across the sill beams beneath a medieval granary in Bavaria. Look under a Romanian barn built before Columbus crossed the Atlantic, and you see the same pattern again and again. Where modern wood warps, rots, twists, and collapses, their wood endures. And here's the unsettling part. Medieval craftsmen had no pressure treatment tanks, no copper preservatives, no epoxy sealants, no engineered laminates, nothing like the tools and chemicals we rely on today. Yet somehow, without any of it, their beams survive longer than most modern structures. The truth is that it wasn't luck, or myth, or old-growth magic. Medieval craftsmen followed a deliberate systema method built on observation, biology, climate, and survival. And when you break it down step by step, you realize it still works today. Their first secret was timing. Medieval builders understood something that has been almost completely forgotten. When you cut the tree is just as important as what tree you cut. Trees are living pumps. In spring and summer, sap rushes upward through the trunk, carrying water and sugar, the exact food sources fungi, bacteria, and insects depend on. Cut a tree during that season, and you've essentially locked a buffet inside the wood. But medieval people didn't do that. They waited for the coldest part of the year, usually late winter, when sap flow is at its minimum and the tree's natural sugar content has dropped to its lowest point. Wood taken in winter contains far fewer nutrients for decay organisms and tends to dry more evenly. Science today confirms exactly what medieval builders already knew. Winter-cut wood can resist rot for decades longer, simply because it begins its life with less food for decay. If you're harvesting your own timber today, the same principle applies perfectly. You want to fell your trees during late winter. Ideally, when the ground is frozen and temperatures are still low, that's when the sap is down, the moisture is reduced, and the internal structure is at its most stable. If you're buying lumber instead of cutting it yourself, you can still look for winter-harvested stock, or at least choose lumber from slower growing, denser species that mimic the same natural advantages. Medieval builders didn't guess at this. They learned it through generations of observation, and it remains one of the most powerful natural protections against rot. But cutting the tree was just the beginning. The second major pillar of medieval wood preservation was slow seasoning, truly slow, measured, patient drying. Today, we kill dry wood as quickly as possible because industries are built on speed. But rapid drying creates cracks, warps, internal stress, and moisture pockets. Worse, it destabilizes the wood so that seasonal humidity cycles slowly tear it apart over time. Medieval builders avoided every one of those problems by letting air do the work naturally. They stored their beams under open-sided sheds where air could flow freely, shadows could protect the surface, and the drying process could take months or even years. They stacked the timber with spacers, kept it off the ground, and let every beam dry at a calm, natural pace. This slow seasoning created wood with stable internal moisture content, wood that didn't swell or shrink dramatically, didn't trap dampness, and didn't create the microfractures where fungi begin their work. You can replicate this today with surprising ease. Season your lumber by stacking it with space between each board. Cover the top two shield from direct rain and sun, but keep the sides completely open so wind can flow. Don't wrap it. Don't seal it. Don't try to speed it up. Let nature do the same slow, steady, drying medieval craftsmen relied on. The difference in long-term stability is enormous. The third medieval technique may be the most visually striking: surface charring. Long before Japan perfected sho sugiban, Europeans were charring the ends of posts and beams to create a protective carbon shell. A charred layer of wood is essentially a natural armor, hydrophobic, insect-resistant, and hostile to microbial life. Archaeologists studying ancient Scandinavian and British structures regularly find charred post ends that are hundreds, sometimes nearly 1,000 years old. The char layer blocks moisture, seals the pores, and destroys the sugars on the surface, making the wood far less attractive to insects and fungi. It is, quite literally, nature's own version of pressure treatment. Doing this today is simple. You don't need a kiln or expensive tools. A controlled fire or a propane torch is enough. Hold the wood over the flame until the surface begins to blacken but stops short of burning through. Brush away the loose soot and, if you want, finish it with a natural oil like linseed or tung. This one step alone can double or even triple the lifespan of ground contact wood. Of course, even perfectly charred and seasoned wood won't survive forever if it sits in water. That leads us to the fourth, and perhaps most important, part of the medieval method: never letting wood rest in still moisture. Medieval builders almost never placed wood directly into soil. They understood that stagnant moisture is the enemy of longevity. So they created drainage layers everywhere: beds of gravel beneath posts, flat stones beneath sill beams, raised floors to keep dampness from creeping upward, and foundations designed to shed water long before it touched the timber. Look at any long-standing European structure, and you'll see this principle in action: beams resting on stones, floors lifted above grade, and designs that encourage water to flow away instead of pooling. You can easily do the same today. If you build a shed, smokehouse, chicken coop, or cabin, set posts on stones or concrete blocks instead of burying them. If you absolutely must bury a post, dig a deep gravel base beneath it to channel water downward and away. This simple decision, the decision to elevate the wood or allow drainage, was one of the primary reasons medieval structures endured for centuries. But even with good drainage, wood can still fall victim to moisture if air can't circulate. That brings us to the fifth medieval secret: constant airflow. Medieval builders understood that trapped moisture kills. Would look at Viking longhouses, German barns, Scottish black houses, and Baltic timber structures, and you'll find the same philosophy. Let the building breathe. They built raised floors, left gaps under the eaves, incorporated cross ventilation, and never sealed structures tightly unless they had a specific purpose to do so. Airflow kept beams dry, prevented condensation, and removed the stagnant humidity fungi rely on. Modern builders often make the mistake of sealing small structures like airtight homes, trapping moisture where it does the most damage. But for outdoor building sheds, barns, coops, storage rooms, the medieval method is far superior. Leave ventilation gaps. Place vents on opposing sides. Let air move through the building freely, and the wood will last longer than any chemical sealant can promise. There were also smaller techniques that contributed to longevity. Medieval craftsmen removed bark immediately because bark clings to moisture and harbors insects. They carefully selected species with natural rot resistance. Oak, larch, chestnut, pine, and cypress were favorites depending on the region. They preferred heartwood, the dense inner core of the tree, over sapwood, which rots far faster. And they often used mixed species strategically, placing the most rot-resistant woods closest to moisture sources. When you step back and look at the entire system, it becomes clear that what many call medieval wood magic was never magic at all. It was physics, biology, climate knowledge, and careful observation working together. They understood sap flow, airflow, drainage, moisture stability, fungal behavior, and the way climate shapes wood. And because they worked with nature instead of fighting it, their structures lasted not decades, but centuries. Today, whether you're building an off-grid cabin, reinforcing a homestead structure, restoring an old barn, or simply trying to make a small outdoor project last longer than the average modern build, these medieval techniques are still some of the most effective in the world. They cost almost nothing, require no advanced tools, and outperform many modern shortcuts simply because they align with how wood naturally wants to behave.